And we made it. Good evening, YouTube fam, Facebook fam. Good evening. I'm so happy to see you here. We got some people already in the chat. So good to see people kind of getting in a little early and waiting for things to get started. What I'm going to do is go through and give a few shouts to my people. JP, Struggle Stream family in chat. How's your Saturday spirit? I was on JP's stream a little bit earlier today, and I think she accurately identified something. We are something of kindred spirits, JP, and you just a whole lot smoother with yours, JP, than me. That's all. That's that ENTJ. And you know what? I have another ENTJ in the house. I'm gonna introduce you to, actually, by the way, and just like you, JP, the brother is smooth. He's smooth with his. I'm an INTJ, and one of these days, one of these streams, we're gonna go into the Myers Briggs type index a little bit deeper. But I struggle streamer. I struggle all the way. So, as always, good to have you, JP. Let's see, going down. Richard Smith. This is the brother I'm talking about, but I'm gonna talk about him a little bit later. A little bit later in this stream, actually. Vaughn, number one supporter. You know what? I'm gonna come to that in a minute. But Vaughn, day one. In fact, just about everybody in here, day ones. Um, loving that you're here, brother. I actually kind of peeped you on some other streams too, and more than the fact that you support me, I can tell you're a good brother, good brother. So I'm glad to have you here in the house. Unique coming in for the shout, unique view. All right, Adrian, and by the way, unique also day one supporter, right from the top, right off the top. Adrian, we feel like we go back now. It's funny. I first met Adrian not even a month ago. Really, most of these youth streamers actually on the lead attorneys um, stream. Shout out to the lead attorney. Like 80% of the reason why I'm even doing one of these, right? The lead attorney, always supporting, always so positive, and modeled really, really, really modeled for me anyway, what a positive stream and a positive chat can look like. Now, he's not the only one that's doing these positive streams. I'm finding that out right now, fam. So many of us have been doing this for a minute, and I'm jumping in and glad to be a part of the team. JP, thank you so much for the Cash App support. Oh, of course, we got to support each other. That's what we're doing. Yeah, all good, all good. Let's see, going down here. Reginald Roberts, greetings from Georgia. Nice. So, just one state north from me. I'm in Florida, Jacksonville, Florida, and so I'm not far from that Florida Georgia border. So we close, the South got to represent and stay together. And that's interesting. What I'm beginning to see, and I don't know how long this has been here because I'm new, but what I'm beginning to see is what I feel a group of people who are, really trying to jump on these YouTube streets, and we know they are raw, and we're trying. I feel like we are trying to show examples of that old school respect, that old school, the elders in the group kind of trying to share and pass knowledge on to the younger people in the group, so that we all the culture is passed, and so that we all are up, staying positive, and that we're all learning and growing. Um, Lady Di, yeah, you got it in. You made it in. I'm glad to see you here as well. And Lady Di also. Actually, she's been in here a couple times, but I think Lady Di may have missed the last one live, but caught it later. So always good to have you live. You got Darius in here. We in here. Darius, always, always, always a positive brother, and comes in with very, very well thought out perspectives. Um, and I believe you it did on that last one. I think you might have done some influencing. I hope you did anyway, with our girl Jen, who also, like, I respect Jen. And she just, Jen was on TLA's broadcast, and had some controversial, participated in kind of a controversial back and forth with TLA. But I believe that we're all good people and we can just work through it. So always good to see you, Darius. I'm just going through here. I think we've got a lot of the shouts. And again, I'm just really, really happy and really blessed to be producing these streams. As you guys know, this is my fourth one, um, and I'm sort of, you might say I'm getting on track a little bit, because the last one was all about, and I think it was necessary. It was all about kind of diving into how we relate to each other, and how we have, at least from my point of view, I wanted to use that back and forth as an example of what, um, or learning, tool, if you will, of kind of how we should be approaching each other. And I know I'm not the only one in here. JP, yeah, I had the trophy dad. It's a trophy right here. And I'm proud to say it. Trophy dad. I know I'm not the only one. I know I'm not the only one. So let's see here. So, on my previous stream, um, we had a bit of a discussion about, how what kinds of things, values we should be imparting to our girls, as relates to a number of things. And I had one of my Facebook fam members message me and say, "Hey, you know what?" And it hadn't occurred to me specifically in the kind of the way that she put it. She's like, in this day and age, it would be a really good idea to have something where we're talking about, well, what do we do with this boys? And I told her immediately, "Thank you for kind of dropping that in my spirit. Here we go. We straight there. We want to talk about this as a topic. How do we raise our boys? Because as you know, and I'm going through right here, these Southern locals provoke me to stay in. Adrian, I'm gonna pull you on. You got to talk about that." Darius, that's right. The hat swag, baby. The hat swag. I might rock a little bit more. We're gonna see how this goes. I'm still early. I'm still finding my voice. So you never know what kind of gimmick I pull out, Darius. Um Adrian, hat daddy. Hey daddy. Adrian. Adrian, we gonna pull you on. We was messing with you earlier. You're gonna have to come on, and you know what? I'm gonna be good. I'm not even gonna say what I said in the other stream. I'm gonna be good. So we on this topic, we really do. See, they coming in my stream and they want to mess me up now. They in here clowning. I'm gonna get to the point now without y'all messing me up. Um, let's see here. Thank you, JP. Smile and intellect. That's what we want to bring. And we all have it. We all bring it, the smiles and the intellect. So I'm looking forward to it. As we sort of get, sort of pivot a little bit and meander towards topic, we know what the situation is. I have two girls, and I'm very, very dedicated into and intentional about really trying to, just provide them with the, the best teaching, learning for where they are across the board, to prepare them for, when they grow, and they get out there on their own. Well, that's just half of it. When we get out here in the community and into the society, they've got to interact, with these boys. And you know every father wants their daughters to, find someone eventually who is going to respect them, um, hold them in the proper manner that they should as they move forward. But we need the boys to be able to do that, to hold up their end of the bargain, which means that they need to be raised just as intentionally as I'm raising my girls. And in this society, it's affecting everybody. You guys know it. We see it all the time. Um, Social media is, for many people, um, adults and kids alike is becoming the model. You know, we're seeing so much of how it's affecting, and we see, and it's taking over. We got these young people that's setting the agenda. We're all talking about it. You know, these young people in the Black manosphere, so called, fresh and fit. You know, we're sitting here talking about them, and we're talking about, you know, what the agenda is from you know, other people, you know, kind of out there that are setting the agenda, you know, like a Kevin Samuels. And you know, it's and then you have just the overall culture, you know, with TikTok and Instagram, and you know, what all these young ladies are doing with the Instagram models, and the, you know, you even, it's out there, you know, the culture is so pervasive that it's a story when OnlyFans decides that they're going to pull their risque content off in a few months. And it's like, okay, well, what about all these ladies that are making their living off of doing that on OnlyFans? That's a story now. You know, so it's our culture is so, we're inundated with, you know, all of this, and all of these things, um, you know, are they hitting our young people in a way that we want? And we being honest, everybody here, probably being honest, we know that it's not. I got Vaughn here. Yeah, definitely a challenge. Like all kids are, I think. So what I wanted to do is kind of set the stage a little bit and just talk. So first, in a general sense, about, okay, well, what is it to raise boys? What does it mean, you know, in this society? And then maybe drill down a little bit onto, okay, well, what's, you know, the very unique and different things that are involved with raising Black boys, you know, African American boys into men in this culture. And then maybe there's some things that, you know, are not being mentioned here right in the front that definitely need to be talked about. So where I want to start us off with this is there he is. Yeah, talking about, yeah, that's what they're saying for sure. They're saying that people. I'm hoping you guys can hear me pretty clearly, right? I'm guessing so. The alpha men. We got a couple of them up here. You're gonna see in a second, Adrian. You're gonna see in a second. All right. So what I want to do is start out by, I'm gonna pull up. Right here. It's good. Okay, so you're saying it's clear but a little low. All right. Let me try to get up on this mic then. All right, so you see here, I'm sharing first sort of, this is a maybe a 3-minute little video, 3 or 4 minutes of someone who kind of had a commentary about wars, and you can kind of maybe take this from the perspective of the overall culture. And you know, so this was actually maybe recorded maybe 3 years ago. Maybe some things have changed, maybe they haven't, but this is what this person, actually 4 minutes, has to say about it. So let me play this. Let's see. Wait a minute. Let me make sure before I do that. I'm going to reshare that. I want to make sure that the audio is going to come through when I do. Yeah, I don't think I clicked audio last time. All right, let's do it.
So I made a post earlier today from an article. The article I saw was titled something along the lines of why we need to begin teaching our boys about toxic masculinity as early as the age of 5. Now, I don't subscribe to the term and the idea and the notion of toxic masculinity. I know what anybody who uses the term is trying to say, but the underlying message is that boys and men are inherently bad. I don't subscribe to that. I don't believe that, but that's beside the point. Look, as early as the age of 5, we're going to start teaching boys that they're inherently bad, and we've got to condition this physiological truth out of our boys and out of men. It's absolutely ridiculous. But somebody sent me a message or a comment, and they said, Ryan, in all seriousness, what can we do? What can we do in a society that seems to not want boys to grow up and to be men? And I've got, as I was thinking about this morning, 3 very simple solutions. They're not easy. They take time and effort and sacrifice, no doubt, but they are very, very simple. So let me share those with you. Number 1, we've got to be dads in the walls of our home. And I'm not talking about fathers, because any dude with a penis can be a father. I'm talking about being dads. I'm talking about being available and present physically, mentally, emotionally, coaching and lifting up and leading our boys and teaching them how to win and how to lose and how to harness this raw masculinity that's coursing through their veins. You've done it. I've done it. Other men have done it. And it's up to us to teach our boys how to use that power. And it is powerful. Use that power not to be destructive, but to be constructive, to serve themselves, their families, their businesses, their communities when they get older. Number 1, be a dad in the walls of your home. Number 2 is we've got to be father type roles in the community. See, I see so many men who are selfish. They do a wonderful job at being fathers within the walls of their home, and yet they won't extend that outside. I'm busy. I can't do this. I can't invest time here. And they just focus on themselves. Look, that's great. But the problem is we're sending our boys and girls out into the world, school and sports and all the other things they're doing, and they're being influenced by other boys who are being raised without fathers. So it's our responsibility as men to step outside of the walls of our home and lift the boys up who don't have an example of what it means to be a man. This could be in a church organization. This could be through the community and coaching sports teams. It could be through the school. It could be a big brother type mentoring program. There are so many opportunities to serve our young men in the communities, and it has to be done, because if we don't do it, no one else will. And the third component of this is we've got to elevate ourselves to the position of leadership. Leadership within the walls of our home, leadership in the community, leaders in the businesses that we have, leaders in national and local and regional politics. We've got to gain the insight and experience and knowledge and understanding and practical application so that when we speak, we do so with authority and credibility, because we are in those positions of leadership. I want to be able to dictate the things that are being taught not only to my kids, but to other kids. And I want to also be able to dictate the things that will not be taught to our boys. One is this idea that men are inherently bad, or we're wrong just because we have, again, this masculine energy and these hormones and everything else that we have coursing through our veins. Guys, we've got to do better than we are currently doing. Society seems to dismiss it altogether, seems to, frankly, not want our boys to grow up to be men. And I think we're going to experience some real problems with that. We're already beginning to experience problems with that, with a lack of fathers in the home and in the communities. We see crime rates go up when fathers aren't around. We see school dropout rates. We see violence. We see suicides when fathers aren't around. When good men are not present and are not lifting up our youth, we see some real struggles. We will continue to do so until we adhere to those 3 strategies. Number 1, be a dad within the walls of your home. Number 2, be a father figure in the community. And number 3, elevate ourselves to position of leadership within our communities, our businesses, and also politics. Again, not easy stuff. Takes time, effort, sacrifice. It is very simple, but guys, we've got a lot of work to do, and we have to do it if we have any hope of allowing our boys to turn into the men that they're capable of being.
Okay, so we see here, and this is a YouTuber by the name of Going by Order of Man. If you want to find out a little bit more about who this is, then feel free to visit his YouTube page. But he's making some general points there, right? You may have, let us know here if you have any agreements or disagreements. I'm sort of going down the comments now. We had a couple people who were vibing into what he was saying. Lady Di, I've raised 3 boys and a girl, and I thank God they didn't come up in this era. I've got grandbabies though. Lady Di, yeah, I hear you, and I'm mine are young coming up, so it's gonna be interesting. Maybe you'll have some commentary as we go here, as someone who you've raised them and you got grandbabies now. So that might be really, really interesting. Darius. Yeah, that's why you like us so much, Adrian. The big intellect, right? What's good? One of these days, hopefully a Dangbe. I want you to come on so you can pronounce your name. I want to know, no pun intended, my last name good. And I used to tell people a joke about my last name. I won't tell it now, but yeah, I'm used to that. Um, so yeah, I mean, I would say that those are reasonable points from a broader perspective of what our first guy has to say about fatherhood, being a dad, raising boys. Um, but as African Americans, as Black males in this country, with all the stuff that's been going on here lately, for us it gets a little bit deeper. Oh, Richard got some stuff to say here. I can't wait for Richard to jump in. You know what? I was going to share that, but since before I do it, let's put this up real quick. He's speaking complete and utter garbage. He has no clear definition of what toxic masculinity is or what it is to be a man. He's part of the problem. So very, very specific point of view here. We're going to ask you to definitely, hopefully come on and kind of share a little bit of that. Because, yeah, he did kind of couch things in the beginning with this notion of toxic masculinity, and he has a point of view about he definitely has a point of view about what people might think or call toxic masculinity. So definitely that's some definitely will have you jump in and maybe open up your comments for us a little bit later. Darius says men are so important to the fabric of a community. The leadership, strength, and sense of purpose and direction is vital to move a community forward. Absolutely. And as we are trying to build a community, I'm with you 100%, Darius. Without it, how do we have community? Specifically fathers, husbands, and fathers, in the family unit. How do we have it? So there's that. I'm gonna go ahead and kind of move it a little bit forward with another short video that adds the dynamic of what we face as Blacks in this country and the challenges that we face specifically. So this is someone speaking at a TED Talk, and this is old, just to let you know. This video, so maybe the ideas are exactly the same, or maybe the ideas have evolved since then, but this is from 2015. So you know what? Let me do this again. Let me stop it. I have to make sure that when I share these that I'm actually click the sound. Because sometimes I don't do that. And here we go. All right, share the sound. Let's play it.
Growing up, I didn't always understand why my parents made me follow the rules that they did. Like, why did I really have to mow the lawn? Why was homework really that important? Why couldn't I put jelly beans in my oatmeal? My childhood was abound with questions like this. Normal things about being a kid and realizing that sometimes it was best to listen to my parents even when I didn't exactly understand why. And it's not that they didn't want me to think critically. Their parenting always sought to reconcile the tension between having my siblings and I understand the realities of the world while ensuring that we never accepted the status quo as inevitable. I came to realize that this, in and of itself, was a very purposeful form of education. One of my favorite educators, Brazilian author and scholar Paulo Freire, speaks quite explicitly about the need for education to be used as a tool for critical awakening and shared humanity. In his most famous book, Pedagogy of the Oppressed, he states, "No one can be authentically human while he prevents others from being so." I've been thinking a lot about this lately, this idea of humanity, and specifically who in this world is afforded the privilege of being perceived as fully human. Over the course of the past several months, the world has watched as unarmed Black men and women have had their lives taken at the hands of police and vigilante. These events and all that has transpired after them have brought me back to my own childhood and the decisions that my parents made about raising a Black boy in America that growing up I didn't always understand in the way that I do now. I think of how hard it must have been, how profoundly unfair it must have felt for them to feel like they had to strip away parts of my childhood just so that I could come home at night. For example, I think of how one night when I was around 12 years old on an overnight field trip to another city, my friends and I bought super soakers and turned the hotel parking lot into our own water-filled battle zone. We hid behind cars, running through the darkness that lay between the streetlights. Boundless laughter ubiquitous across the pavement. But within 10 minutes, my father came outside, grabbed me by my forearm, and led me into our room with an unfamiliar grip. Before I could say anything, tell him how foolish he had made me look in front of my friends, he derided me for being so naive, looked me in the eye, fear consuming his face, and said, "Son, I'm sorry, but you can't act the same as your white friends. You can't pretend to shoot guns. You can't run around in the dark. You can't hide behind anything other than your own teeth." I know now how scared he must have been, how easily I could have fallen into the empty of the night, that some man would mistake this water for a good reason to wash all of this away. These are the sorts of messages I've been inundated with my entire life. Always keep your hands where they can see them. Don't move too quickly. Take off your hood when the sun goes down. My parents raised me and my siblings in an armor of advice, an ocean of alarm bells so someone wouldn't steal the breath from our lungs, so that they wouldn't make a memory of this skin, so that we could be kids, not casket or concrete. And it's not because they thought it would make us better than anyone else. It's simply because they wanted to keep us alive. All of my Black friends were raised with the same message, the talk given to us when we became old enough to be mistaken for a nail ready to be hammered to the ground, when people made our melanin synonymous with something to be feared. But what does it do to a child to grow up knowing that you cannot simply be a child, that the whims of adolescence are too dangerous for your breath, that you cannot simply be curious, that you are not afforded the luxury of making a mistake, that someone's implicit bias might be the reason you don't wake up in the morning? But this cannot be what defines us, because we had parents who raised us to understand that our bodies weren't meant for the backside of a bullet, but for flying kites and jumping rope and laughing until our stomachs burst. We had teachers who taught us how to raise our hands in class and not just to signal surrender, and that the only thing we should give up is the idea that we aren't worthy of this world. So when we say that Black lives matter, it's not because others don't. It's simply because we must affirm that we are worthy of existing without fear, when so many things tell us we are not. I want to live in a world where my son will not be presumed guilty the moment he is born, where a toy in his hand isn't mistaken for anything other than a toy. And I refuse to accept that we can't build this world into something new, some place where a child's name doesn't have to be written on a t-shirt or a tombstone, where the value of someone's life isn't determined by anything other than the fact that they had lungs, a place where every single one of us can breathe. Thank you.
All right. So that's in the TED series. If you're not already following the TED channel and it's something that you're interested in, definitely you can follow the TED series on YouTube. So his name was Clint. So that's Clint's kind of short treatise, I guess you could say, on part of the plight of raising Black boys in this country. So it's nuanced, right? There's a lot that we have to consider and that we think about. So there's maybe some parts of this subject that we have not covered yet that maybe some of you have some perspectives on. But I'm very, very interested to explore this subject with you. Before I open up let me do this real quick. I'm gonna put the invite link here. I believe that's it. Yeah. So if you want to call in and be on the panel, please do so. While we're sort of waiting for that to happen, let me go to, these people didn't know I was going to do this, but I want to say thank you, a special thanks, first of all, to everybody for, of course, being here, participating with the show, being in the chat, and then even joining in on the panel. I also want to have a special thanks to the people who have become Cash App sponsors. You know, people who come in and actually donated to me um, uh, any amount, to to the show. Just very, very special thank you to you all, because you're kind of showing that you're willing to support an effort like this, something like this. And um, a lot of times, like, what happens is, like, I try to give a shout out during the show if somebody does it, but a few times, you all here have, like, you know sent me a cash app after it was over, and I can't send the acknowledgement, and you're not looking for the acknowledgement, but at the same time, I want to acknowledge everybody that does it. So I said, you know what, let me just throw up a card here thanking you personally, Vaughn, Mikhail, Shayla. Thank you so much. You're demonstrating in more ways than one that you're willing to help invest in me and the show, and you really vibe in with the purpose, and I appreciate that tremendously. So I wanted to give you your shouts on that. Let's see here. Also, I might as well go ahead and run a little ticker here while we get things going. Let's see. So, speaking of that, we definitely want to remind you to like this video on YouTube, and please subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell to be notified when I go live. And, if you do want to, it's not at all required or necessary. If you do want to support the show financially, then you can hit the Cash App, or you can use the Buy Me a Coffee link. Get me a coffee. Any support at all is just huge and much appreciated. All right, let's check out these comments before we dive in. And I see we got Adrian in the back. We're going to pull Adrian up. Adrian, you ready to cam up? Let me show some of these real quick. Let's see. JP says we have to be honest about the dangers while keeping them innocent and creating a different tomorrow. I agree 100%. So true. Let's see. My son is 35. So we'll see what Ellie JJ, and shout out to Ellie JJ. I believe you might have said something earlier. Hey, what's happening? Glad you're here. Yep, I see you speaking now. Let's see. Okay, I'm just going through. Blind guy, his wife, their life. Thank you so much. What's happening? Glad you could be here. You are welcome, Vaughn, for all the support. I'm thanking you over here. I'm thanking you. All right. So since Adrian, you popped up a little first, I will go in order and just have you. Adrian, you got some background stuff going on. I can hear you. There you go. Adrian, say something. We can see how your audio is.
Good evening, Daddy.
Why are you playing with me, Adrian?
I am.
How you doing? I want to make sure I brought you up first, because I at the last one you were so patient and you didn't really get a chance to get in. And I get the sense, and that could be wrong, but I gathered that you didn't get quite the opportunity that you wanted to contribute, that you to contribute as much as you did for the last stream. So I wanted to say, hey, let's get Adrian in here. And yeah, JP, family show.
I always keep it G until it's not.
Okay. So Adrian.
Yes, sir.
Would you like to comment on any of this, or do you feel like there's anything that maybe needs to be put on the table that has not yet been discussed?
Wow, Frank, this is a bit of a loaded one for me.
Okay, talk to me.
Particularly when wait, is JP in the house? Is JP coming up? Look, particularly JP, I kind of directed this at JP. Particularly when I think about my parents' son. JP needles me all the time for the way that I refer to my parents' son. But yeah, there were some interesting family dynamics in my personal family of origin. I think we were talking about the other day, or I made it like an analogy the other day when, like, if you have a yard and you allow a weed to grow out of control unchecked, then you just have a yard that's all choked out with weeds. You know, when you don't set consequences for reprobate behavior, then when that person potentially grows into an adult, then they're running all amok. And then as a parent, you might sit back and say, well, what happened? So then you might have a sibling that says, well, what you mean, what happened? You let him run all amok. I don't know what the balance is in, I don't know, protecting boys, let's say, and encouraging them and requiring them to be responsible protector providers.
Mhm.
And I know that's really loaded.
It
So
is.
let's talk about that. Please and thank you.
Well, I want to hear what your point of view is on it. When you
You
say
know, I'm trying to keep it rather general.
okay,
The details will be in the book, The Life Story of Adrienne Nash.
let me ask you first, real quick, real very directly, because I do want to what you to me what you're bringing up is kind of a, maybe slightly of an offshoot, and I want to start out as close to right on topic as possible, and then let things kind of grow. What I want to ask you is, do you have sons, or do you have kids or sons?
No, I'm single, never married, no children.
Okay, okay, no worries.
Now, but years ago when I was a younger, more fabulous woman, I wanted to have a tribe of kids.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I actually wanted to have mostly sons. And I actually, like, I'm going to share this with the chat and everybody else. Like, I had picked out the name for my first son, who's not here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. My first son's name is Sirach Sadiq. Okay. So Sirach is one of my favorite wisdom books from the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And Sadiq is a kind man. So collectively, a wise and kind man. Well, if I'm going to have a son who's a wise and kind man, then his father needs to be a wise and kind man.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't found Sirach Sadiq's father yet, Frank.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So are you as I bring up our next one, and we're gonna have I got something I want to say about this brother right here. I can't wait.
Hey, brother.
But before I do it, so are you kind of in the perspective as you're part of your angle for this conversation is, you know, you are looking for the product of what would be a properly raised, properly um, seasoned, properly reared black boy or boy, you know, basically a man who's matured from having been in the result of a proper rearing. Is that kind of where you are? Is that how you kind of see this, or no?
Are you asking me, am I looking?
Not looking per se, but if
Okay.
you were to
Okay, because
find,
I'm not looking. I stay off the streets, Frank.
okay, yeah, yeah, not,
Stay
not,
out of these streets, especially in Georgia.
I hear
Is this brother down here? Are you a Georgia man?
I am.
Oh, I'm
I'm
visiting.
I'm originally from Jacksonville, Florida, but I've been here in Atlanta for about 14 years.
I'm visiting
Visiting
okay.
Georgia.
Georgia.
What part of Georgia?
Wait. Stop. because I want to do
He's
my
Napa
intro.
area.
Okay,
Good
yeah,
man.
do your
Go
intro.
there.
Do your intro.
We
do
can
your
go
intro.
there, but I have to introduce this. This is Richard Smitty Smith right here. I just
Is
can't
this Smitty Smith
listen.
of the Smiths?
No, he's a Smith for sure, and I'm sure he's.
I don't know you, Mr. Smith.
I know him really well. In fact, I've known Richard Smith for most of my adult life, maybe all of my adult life. We met in college,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
this is a line brother
Line brother.
of the Sigma Upsilon chapter of Alpha
Okay.
Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. A man of outstanding character, has deposited into my life for years and years and years. I am so happy to. In fact, I don't do this for everybody, but I got to bring out the applause.
All good luck.
He didn't know I was gonna do this. He didn't know I was gonna do
I did
this.
not.
But I have to properly introduce this brother. I'm so happy to have my line brother and my frat brother participate with this. And I'll say this before he gets a chance to say it. I'm really interested in his point of view because he has two sons. And I'll pass it off to you, Richard, for speak on whatever you want to speak on.
All right. This is a really interesting topic to me. I'm currently, with my wife. We'll be celebrating 12 years of marriage in September. And we have two boys, Richard and Miles, who are 7 and 5. And this is something that I think about daily, hourly, about how to raise men. And you started off the conversation talking about toxic masculinity. And, and I said he was complete and utter garbage, the guy in the video, because, I think it's important to define what toxic masculinity is. And he didn't do a very good job of it. So here are the top 10 toxic masculinity behaviors: being stoic, being promiscuous, championing sexuality as the unalterable norm, being violent, being dominant, sexually aggressive towards women, not displaying emotion, not being a feminist ally. That is toxic masculinity. When I think about your second video, Clint Smith, about the talk, I think about how some fathers, specifically Black fathers, will try to give their sons armor against the world. Don't cry. Don't let things hurt you. Don't let things in. Don't allow your emotions to overcome you. Don't have emotions. You may know how to date a woman. You may know how to seduce a woman, but you don't know how to be a husband to a woman. And what I am and my wife are intentional about with our sons is teaching them about how to navigate their emotional environment. Being stoic is not acceptable in this home. You must be able to talk through your emotions. Being aggressive, violent, dominant is not acceptable in this home. When I think of men who are leaders, men who are leaders in the community, in business, they are caring, they are compassionate, they are warm, they are friendly, they are funny, they are engaging, they are authentic. That is, to me, being a man. And that is important as we teach our boys how to be men. And we have to allow our young boys, 5, 7, 9, 12, to be boys, to be developmentally appropriate. They are not young men or small men. They are children. And we have to think about where they are developmentally. So, and respond as adults accordingly. If there were a camera in my home, me and my wife have these things about what we taught our kids. I said, you know what? It's their jobs to test boundaries. It's their job to find out where the line is and cross it repeatedly. It's their job to do certain things because it's developmentally appropriate. They are not small adults. They are children. So I feel that sometimes people think about armoring their children, especially their Black men. They think about walling them off from what they perceive as the hurt from the world coming in. And my wife and I have taken a different approach and said, we're going to try to help you work through whatever emotions you're having so that you can be productive, so that you don't have emotions that come out in destructive ways, self-destructive ways, whether to yourself or harming your relationships with other people. Mm-hmm. Because when you find people that are authentic, that are and know who they are as men and know their place in the world, it's a very powerful thing. Mm-hmm. One last thing I'll share, and then I'll be quiet, is I was watching something on PBS that I'd saved, and it was about the civil rights movement, and specifically about Martin Luther King, and how when he came into the movement of civil rights, it was very much at the same time of Black Power, the Black Panthers, I'm Black and I'm Proud, how Adam Clayton Powell called him Martin Luther King. He was not very popular until he was dead. He was actually the most hated man in America, but he was teaching love, nonviolence. Black Power, the Black Panthers were teaching, in some regards, not all, because I don't want to paint this with a broad brush, but they were talking violence, aggression. And he was saying, we have to love our way through this. And I think that's a very powerful message. And if you think about the message that has been carried on for the decades after he passed, it is this message. And it's so much more powerful when someone lives in that authenticity of love, genuine respect, curiosity about others, and the ability to be compassionate. So, I'll just close it right there. And I think that, sometimes we get it twisted in terms of what is masculinity and what it means to be a man.
Hey, that's my frat brother right there.
Can you hit that applause button, please?
That's what I'm doing right now.
Oh, please.
That is my frat brother right there. I mean, go ahead, Adrian. Anything you want to? Was any of that at all?
I mean, I'm just gonna sit here with sparkles in my eyes.
He's
taking my list. Are you sure you're from the South?
Yeah, born and raised in Jacksonville, Florida.
This is shocking.
On Avenue B, in C Street.
Oh, okay. Sure, I don't know where that is.
You may not, but for those who are in Jacksonville who know Duval know exactly where that is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very well said, sir. I concur. I love it. And where are those men at?
You bring up an interesting point. I have a number of. No, I'm not going to say that. What I am going to say is this: is that, I think that it's important that each person do their own interior work, do their own work on themselves. Because what I found is that when you do the work internally, the world will then return things to you in equal measure.
Absolutely.
If you are kind and considerate and loving and warm, you will find kind, considerate, loving, warm. If you are vulnerable and let people in, you will find people who are vulnerable. If you put up walls and you put up pretenses and you do these, that's what you find. So oftentimes when I'm speaking with my women friends who are single and we're talking about dating and finding men, what I often say is that, you find the man that finds you in the state you're in. And you have to, and I think it's true, it's for men. I think the truth is for men. We find the women that equal the state that we are in. And I find that, if you don't worry, he will find you. A man, let's not talk about boys. A man will find you. A man will find you in the state in which you are. But you have to make sure that, you have to be very clear about where you are. Mm-hmm. I don't want to take this down no Kevin Samuels kind of road, but because that's not on topic. But that's another conversation for another day.
We can take it really anywhere that any of us feels relevant, to be honest with you, because it's such a broad and nuanced topic. Um, you know, you from where I'm sitting right now, you're definitely, I think, speaking on the importance of the end destination where you arrive with this fully sexual what's the word, self-actualized person who is a man, you know, that came from a boy. So if you had to, considering again that you have two boys and you kind of mentioned in a certain amount of detail um, um, your perspective on it and your take on it, but you know, is there, how can you get into the nuts and the bolts of, you know, if you had to share some things with some people about the keeping them or working them through the things, the power of social media that's out here, and you know, either dealing with the effect or warding off the effect, which I know you didn't, you know, you actually have a different point of view about that. How should people, especially we, and I really want to ask this from the kind of standpoint of, we have, as you know, in this society, a lot of single ladies that are trying to raise boys. And so it's one thing to come at it from the perspective of a man who has a wife and has a fully intentional, fully, you know, you've thought it out, your vision for how you wanted to have your boys be raised. Do you have any thoughts about, okay, the single ladies, the single women who are out here who may have one boy, two boys, three boys, and the kinds of things they need to be thinking about as they try to raise their boys to men?
You know, I got two clear thoughts on it. One is, you know, a personal one is that, you know, my basically, when I grew up, my father died when I was 2 years old. My mother never remarried, and you know, and she was a single parent. And I remember growing up as a boy, she would often tell me, she says, "I'm raising you to be the head of your family as Christ is the head of the church." This is something my mother would say to me quite often. I didn't really understand the impact of it until I got older, but that is kind of what was put into my head. And she said that I, as a woman, really can't teach you how to be a man, but I can put you around men I respect. And I remember the day that I came home and told my mother that I was going to pledge Alpha Phi Alpha. My mother is the first person in our family to graduate from Florida Agriculture and Mechanical University with a 4-year nursing degree. And she said that the men on campus that were about things, doing things, involved and engaged were alpha men. And she was proud of the decision that I had made. And she put me around when I was a young boy in 6th grade. As you know, Frank, I went to Bowles in Jacksonville. Put me around men that she respected, that she felt that could teach me things about being a man. And then lastly, her personal language around men was different. She did not feel, let me be clear, she did not express openly to me that she felt that men were not good. She expressed to me that she thought men were good, that she felt that, I had been around young women who would come around the house and visit my sisters, and they would say, all men are dogs. And my mother would say, all men are dogs. All men are not dogs. So she was very clear in providing a personal perspective and saying, men are good, men are valued. And she made a distinction. Men are good, men are valued. Boys, different discussion. So as I think about women who may be in a situation where they married their son's father, they're no longer married, or they didn't marry, what have you, and they're wondering, how is it? I think that the conversation that they have about men is important, that they have around their sons. I think that whom they choose to place their sons around is important. And I think it should be intentional. I don't think being a man is something that happens by accident. It happens by intention. It happens as the result of conscious thought. And those are the things, You know, I mean, I remember my next door neighbor, Mama Nora, who used to keep me as a small boy. I mean, I was in elementary school, and my mother was teaching me how to cook, how to clean, and how to sew. And my mother, she says, she said, Nora said to my mom, she said, Mildred, you are turning, this boy into, she used a homosexual, kind of slur. And she said, no, she says, he will marry a woman he wants, not because he needs.
Mhm.
Want, not need. So she was from a very early age about being very conscious about what she heard, what she said, and what I heard about being a man
Mhm.
and having a healthy relationship with women.
Mhm. So while you've been speaking, because I
Mhm.
think you did provide me with some key points from what you said. And so what I want to do is see if I can, and this will be a first. You guys see me growing as I'm going. I'm trying new
Mhm.
things here. Let's see here. Let's do it. Let's see. I got some slides. Can you guys see that? Yeah.
Yeah, we can see it. Yeah.
So what I took away just now was a couple of key takeaways that maybe single women should be thinking about doing is one, take your boys around men that you admire. And then two, reinforce that men are valuable. I think those are 2 points. Did you want to add anything to those, or do those kind of sum up your thoughts on that particular matter?
I do, and I would say the third one is how the woman personally speaks about men,
Mhm.
in a fashion that says it's a person that says, I like men. I think men are valuable. I think they serve a role in the home as women serve a role in the home. And it doesn't have to be these stereotypical male female roles of cook, clean, and that sort. It doesn't have to be that, but there is a productive, mutually beneficial relationship
Mhm.
that men and women have and should have together. So I think it's speak, reinforce, take them around. And I will tell you this is that my mother would not allow me to be around any man she did not know.
Mhm.
Zero. It's like, she would say, look, you can't go in this house, you can't go in that house, you can't do this. This is someone that you can't. And she was very clear about it. And as a kid, I'm just like, okay, well, I'm just gonna do what my mom says. I didn't really think that deeply about it as an 8-year-old. I mean, how deeply can I think is at 8? But as I got older, I was like, wow, she was really on it. The sad thing is, my mother passed away in 2007, and I wish I could tell her face to face, the impact that she's had on me, and the things that she did for me that really helped me become a man and helped me really figure it out. Because it's a quest that I've been on and a quest that I continue to be on. I mean, even now, today I took my oldest son to baseball practice, and I am not one of the assigned coaches, but I am there and I am present. And I'm watching the other dads and how they're talking to their sons and making it very clear. This is how you interact with my son. These are the things I'm teaching my son. It's very, and it's not something I come out and say. You could just see it in the way that I act and react in my countenance and being around. I mean, my wife even knows, she says, the men react differently when you're around.
Mm-hmm. So as you see, I've brought JP in, but before I do that, Adrian, I wanted to give you, I have you, I muted you, Adrian, if you want to say anything. I don't know if you want to kind of chime in, or if you're just taking it all in. And
I'm sitting here taking it all in, Mr. Smith. Please and thank you. Please and thank you.
Nice. Well,
You.
I'm going to go ahead and bring in, I'm happy to say another ENTJ, because I happen to know that Richard Smith is, if I'm not mistaken, ENTJ as well. We got another one who I find to be very, very inspirational. Like all of us, everybody don't agree on every single thing, but she is an incredibly deep thinker, and we are kindred spirits in a lot of different ways. JP, can can you go ahead and chime in on your point of view?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay.
It's a
Hey, Miss
little low.
Adrian. It's a little low. Let me see.
Yeah.
I've got in my
If
Bluetooth
you
headphones.
Yeah,
So,
now if you can't turn it up, we can roll with it. It's just a little low.
okay. Okay,
Hmm.
so let's try to do it. This is what I got. First of all, Miss Adrian, honey, I'm gonna need you to get that thing under control a little bit, a little bit. These men's, they already got some women's. I'm gonna need you to. This is a
Which thing
G-rated
is
show.
that?
You know I love you.
Which thing
G-rated.
do you? Could you just clarify, please? Which thing do you need me to control?
That we're not gonna go there. It's a G-rated show, young lady. What I tell you? You meet me
Oh,
backstage so we can push
oh!
it
I didn't
down.
realize that that
Yes,
thing was
that thing is
banging.
it's thangin'. It's thangin' all over the internet right now.
No
I love you.
disrespect,
No, all
gentlemen.
the love I got. All the love I got.
We let the ladies play mess around with each other like this on my show all the time. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm sorry. Having said that, I do want to address what I had said earlier that Darius responded to. Our mothers tend to move in fear from time to time, right? I would say that the 10 signs of toxic masculinity are based on women's fears of men. I'm not saying that some of those things in excess are a problem, right? The problem is that we almost try to push them completely out of our boys. And young black boys, our boys are different from other boys. Our boys are a little bit more focused on that type of behavior. Thank you so much, Richard, for putting those down there for me in the private chat. There's a couple of things here that I think that we really need to address. Not being a feminist ally, for instance. Well, yeah, maybe that's not necessary. Feminism is a point of view, right? And I think that that's one of those things we might need to take out of there because some of us don't believe that women should have power to everything all the time. I'm being very broad here in that regard. And then the other one is championing heterosexuality as the unalterable norm. We might need to be real about that a little bit, right? Isn't it possible that for some of us, because of what like we have how our doctrines are aligned, because of what we've experienced in life, or whatever those things may be, that may be our set of values. My problem with this set of 10 is that it attempts to push out what we hold as our own values or doctrine in some regard. So I can see it and understand it, and it's not entirely bad if we're talking about the excesses. But toxic masculinity is being used as an everyday word now, and in that regard, the everyday behaviors of men are being held under a microscope that they're not deserving of.
Okay, let's talk about this. Go into that. Either Adrian or Richard, do you all have kind of a point of view to what JP is talking about here at all? Oh, Richard, you're on mute. Okay.
I'll chime in here. I do think it's important that men do not champion heterosexuality as the unalterable norm. Now, although it may be the norm in this house, because clearly it may not be someone else's home. And I will give you a personal example. So my son is going to school, a public elementary school here in Georgia. And he asked me a question about a family with two dads. And he said, Dad, I know you and mommy and me and my brother make a family, but my friend at school has two dads. I said, there sometimes can be many different ways to think about a family. Your family is this. Someone else's family is that. And I kind of explained, I said, they got a dad, and then, the daughter and the son. And I said, and that's the way that they live their lives. His response to me was, I like ours, and okay, and went back to eating chicken nuggets. It was one of those things where I didn't react one way or another. I didn't have this huge reaction. I just said, there are many different things, and this is our thing. And he says, well, I dig our thing. And he said, well, I'm glad he he said, I'm glad he has his thing, and I think it's important for that. I think the danger in it, as with anything, is to have these kind of absolute extremes of thought and of ways of being that define our world. It may define your world, but it may not define the world, right? And I think that it's important. I think that we have to teach our men to have a very flexible mind while having a North Star for their personal conduct and character. That is not to say that they're going all over the place and going with the wind. They have their personal definition, their own North Star, but realizing that there are other ways of being outside of their realm of being. Because, that's a line of logic that, can be very dangerous when we think about other ideologies, that are out of the scope of this show. And I think about that. And I think women, going to another point, women want men that are strong, that have a viewpoint, that are able to protect the family and them. But I do not think that women want women, not girls, want men who are not violent. And they want them to be dominant, but not domineering. Okay. So I think that there are nuances to this that we have to be aware of, complexities that we must be aware of when discussing this and talking about this with our young men. Because if we make this too simple, as you see, this world is very complex, very nuanced. And we have to supply our young men with abilities to think critically, to think for themselves, to think in a way that's nuanced. Because when we get into very simplistic thinking, just look at the political climate that we're in today. It's very simplistic. It ignores nuance. People are trying, because of the complexity of the world, are trying to make it simple, but it's not. And we have to equip our men and our young men and our boys with ways of thinking about the world that allow them to have their own North Star and their own personal direction and character, while realizing that someone's reality may be different from theirs.
Mm-hmm. Adrian, JP, do either of you have anything you want to say or respond to that before I bring Darius?
I'm listening and taking it all in. Yes, please.
Mm-hmm.
I'm different. I do have something to say.
Okay.
I want my man, my son, my husband, the men in my life to come with a certain level of aggression, with a certain level of, like you said, dominance, not domineering. I do believe, though, that we have to go through those stages, as you said, as our sons go through those stages. We cannot get them to emote them all the way out of themselves, right?
Did we lose?
I think we did.
Sorry,
Yeah.
that was me.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
All right.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry about that. We keep asking for our sons to be friends to our daughters. Our daughters do not need friends. They have those. That's a chick next door. Our daughters need young men who can lead their family. Thus, they can't always be their friend. In order for that to happen, there has to be some level of, you respect me for another reason. I respect you because at the end of the day, you're the one who's going through that door if somebody else is coming through it. And I need to see that in you and know that in you. So there has to be a certain level of masculinity, aggression that comes across from you at all times. We're trying to push that out of our men because it's scary to a certain subsect of women, right? Feminist women, a specific group of women feel a specific way about men and masculine behaviors. That's what I'm combating as a mother of sons every day. I'm going to teach you. That's why I say we move in fear. Single mothers, we try and take out all of the things that hurt us. We try to remove those from our sons. Instead of finding a man who can put it into boundaries and guidance for them and us. That's the problem. We don't admit that we ourselves still need that support, guidance, and some boundaries. Our men have to provide that. In order for them to be able to do that, they have to be able to make us sit down and be quiet sometimes. And we have to accept that there's a level of aggression that comes with that. That's what I think that we keep pushing out.
So JP is really coming at it from the perspective of the, you know, a woman, a female, and her part to play in a full dynamic of, you know, a strong and responsible and masculine man. I want to bring Darius in. I want to add another point of view. Darius, my boy, how you doing, man? Always good to have you on the stream. Before I did that, I want to give, if anybody wanted to have something specific while it's on their mind before I bring Darius, I'll give you the time. If not, then I'll bring Richard.
I just have one quick thing. You know, I think language is important, and I think what she is describing is not really aggression or dominance. It is assertiveness. Now, I do believe in having young men, boys, teaching them assertiveness. And assertiveness is basically saying, I have proper boundaries. You may or may not touch me. You may or may not talk to me. You may or may not talk to me in a certain way. That's assertiveness. And I think that that is what women want, is someone to be assertive with them, not aggressive, not dominant or domineering, but assertive with them. But I will say this, is that if a man and a woman are together, and I'm saying a man and a woman, not a boy and a girl, a man and a woman are together, I do think that that sort of relationship is a two-way street where there has to be trust in that relationship. There has to be candor in that relationship. There has to be, how do I say it? The man has to earn that position each and every day with his wife, woman, as the woman earns it each and every day with her husband. They have to allow the space for them to influence the other with assertiveness and saying, you know what, you were wrong for that. That wasn't right. That wasn't correct. And the person says, you know what, you're right. You're my husband. You're my spouse. You understand me better than anyone else. And you're probably right. I probably did come at that a little sideways. I was petty. I was small. I wasn't acting in my best self. I think that's what we're talking about. And I think we have to be very clear about it when we're talking, because when we get unclear about it, I think it can be misconstrued in a lot of different ways.
Mm-hmm. All right. I like that. What I want to do now is offer a little bit of space here for another perspective and let Darius jump right on in. And then maybe I'll throw it back to JP right after, as we continue what is turning out to be, as we always thought, a nuanced conversation. Darius, what you got?
Frank, thank you for having me. Really appreciate it. I wasn't going to jump on. I just wanted to hear more experienced and more intelligent people have a conversation and just soak in the knowledge, like Adrian, right? But a word was said and it pricked my heart to the point where it was like, I have to say something. And that word, of course, is toxic masculinity, because I think that thread of thinking creates a problem in raising young men. And my stance on it is that I don't think that the word toxic masculinity and its beliefs really, it doesn't exist. Let's be clear. That whole concept doesn't exist. And why would I say that? There's two reasons why I say that. One, masculinity, and my brother, Mr. Richard, he said something very important, and language is important. And it applies here too. If we actually look at the context of what masculinity is, it's just attributes that are attributed to men. Liking fast race cars, liking sports, doing things that are naturally attributed to men, their physiological and mental makeup is masculinity. A lot of the traits that are given to men in terms of toxic masculinity doesn't just exist within the scope of men. Both sexes do it. Both sexual aggression is something both sexes do. But when men do it, it's toxic masculinity. You see what I'm saying? So it creates a construct where men are judged in a way, they are judged with things that are attributed to both sexes, but they're judged more harshly on it, and the behavior becomes part of our personality as opposed to being behaviors that are learned or not controlled. And I think that's unfair, because think about this. Let's put this in our hearts and our minds. No one's ever in the history of the world, or maybe they have, I haven't heard it, but I've never heard anyone say toxic femininity. Never heard it. Is not a part of our cultural vocabulary. So how can toxic masculinity exist on this side of the spectrum, but toxic femininity isn't a thing on the opposite side of the spectrum? So if toxic masculinity exists, then toxic femininity has to exist as well. And we have to have clear constructs for both if we're going to actually create something like that. But it doesn't exist. And it creates a problem when we're raising young men, because now we don't really know what's the clear line of what's assertive versus what's aggressive. That line is no longer clear because now there's toxic masculinity that persists. And JP had a very good point. She said that she wants her men to be, there is a space for men to be aggressive, because think about this. Assertiveness is great in a disagreement with your significant other, your spouse. Granted, good point. But if a burglar comes and breaks into your home, assertiveness is not needed at that point. A certain level of aggression is going to be needed at that point. Or if protecting your family as a whole, making those hard decisions, a certain level of aggression is going to be needed. It has to be properly channeled and properly funneled in. It can't be reckless. It can't be used any and everywhere. But it is in that space of protection, aggression is needed. But if we never teach our young men how to properly use it in that space, then when push comes to shove, what are we doing? Excuse me, what are we doing? So the construct of toxic masculinity is really crippling, moving the next generation of young men forward, because they don't have a clear line of what's masculine, and acceptable. What language does a masculine man speak, and what's the clear lines of saying, oh, it's toxic, now it's toxic? Because to one person, to one group of people, being sexually aggressive is toxic masculinity, fair enough. But to another group of people, another sector of people, just thinking that men are best at certain things is toxic. And it's like, okay, well, where's the line here? And that's why I double down and say that I don't see that it exists. I think there are behaviors that are psychological in nature, maybe environmental in nature, that humans as a whole do in terms of maybe scarcity, of fear, psychological damages and baggages that attributes to toxic behavior. I don't think it's masculine toxic. I don't think it's a feminine toxic. I think it's toxic behavior, and it can skew either way. So I think we need to start reversing the conversation, reversing that language of toxic masculinity, because it creates a construct. It creates a mentality that men are bad, and we wonder why Most men run away from the challenge of raising their family, run away from the challenge of raising other young men or mentoring young men and mentoring young women. You wonder why. So that's just my stance on it.
So yeah, I think that phrase toxic masculinity is definitely causing a number of us to really chime in. What I want to do is, as you all know, introduce what I have on Talk with Frank Gooden, lovingly referred to as the courtesy clock. And what we do on that is simply just make sure that the courtesy clock remains undefeated, roughly 3 minutes at the start of time on a subject. And because we have right now several of you with probably some interesting perspectives, I'm going to go ahead and bring it in just to keep us moving forward. Anybody has anything on any comments on what Darius just brought up, please jump in and I will put you on the clock.
All right, you can put me on the clock. All right, here we go. I think it's important not to conflate issues. I think we have to stay one issue at a time. There is masculinity. There's nothing wrong with masculinity. There's nothing wrong with that. I think I am masculine. There's nothing wrong with that. Toxic masculinity is a way of thinking about overuse of masculine traits. Sometimes it's almost like too much of a good thing can be bad. Sugar is good. Too much of it is bad. So it's not that toxic masculinity is supplanting masculinity. It is an additional definition. Now, the other thing is that I think that we're talking about toxic masculinity, or at least I am, as it reflects on raising young men, young boys to be men. I am not raising them to overuse their masculinity. I'm using them so that they can use their masculinity appropriately. It is not appropriate to settle a disagreement with your fist. It is appropriate to settle a disagreement if someone swings on you, if someone is physically aggressive with you. That is appropriate use of your masculinity. It is not considered toxic. It is considered self-defense. So let's not conflate issues, one situation to be another situation. This is a nuanced situation, argument, and we have to treat it as such. And in the construct of this conversation of raising young men, we're teaching them how to use their masculinity in an appropriate way, not an inappropriate way. There is nowhere sexual aggression is acceptable. No means no. Sexual aggression by definition is unwanted. By definition, it is unwanted. So therefore, if it is wanted, it is not sexually aggressive. Just that simple. Mm-hmm. So I think that we have to be careful in how we use these concepts and how we think about them. And I have 21 seconds left.
Hey, I love it. Thank you all for the respect. This, in this environment in general, people aren't necessarily used to being kind of put on the clock, put on the timer. And so, hey, just thank everybody for respecting the clock and making sure that it's undefeated. JP asked to go next. And so I'm going to put JP on the clock and give you the floor, ma'am.
I appreciate that, Mr. Smith. I appreciate you showing up today. First of all, I love any Black man who is a part of his family's life, whether you can be in the home or outside of it. If you show up for your children every day, you get my salute, brother. Anytime you need somewhere to unpack your Black, is JP the aspiring matriarch. You hit me up anytime, all right? Now, having said that, I do want to say this. Everything that you have stated, sir, is something that our daughters exhibit the same behaviors, out of control even in the beginning. The problem is when our boys reach 6, we stop seeing them as children and expect them to begin to move as men, where our daughters are expected to continue to move as little girls. and we continue to treat them like little girls. They're allowed to do little girl things. When boys hit in response to being hit at 6, they're told you can't put your hands on that little girl. Girls don't hit, right? It's a definitive distinction. We girls are allowed to hit other girls, and being told don't hit. It's not okay. Don't hit boys because they can hurt you should be a statement that's made instead of just telling boys don't hit girls, right? We're not doing it that way. We're not balancing these things out. So when you talk about toxic masculinity, we have to understand that our boys and girls are doing these things at the exact same time. We're only trying to push it out of our boys. When our girls do it, our girls are sexually aggressive at 12, 13, 16. I saw more pictures of little girls' tatas in my son's phone than I've seen of my own boobs in my entire life. Okay? That's a real truth. We have to address that. That is sexual aggression, is it not? It's coming from a little girl. So we have to, it's not toxic. The behavior itself is. Masculinity aside, boy is aside, penis aside, the behavior. But let's talk about behaviors, not being masculine, not being a male, they're associated. And that's the problem that we're having. We keep trying to push these things out of our boys because we're afraid. The world sees our boys as a threat at 6. And we move knowing that rather than trying to help our boys understand that while allowing them their innocence. Protect them, tell them what's going on in the world, and then try to make the world better and tell them how they can do better as they do different as they move forward. That's what we need to work on. So again, I just want to say to every black man inside of here, all 1, 2, 3, 4 of you, I think it is, you're fantastic. You're doing an excellent job because you show up every doggone day. You hold your head up high, you raise your hat, and you give me the prettiest smile that you can because I'm proud of you and I appreciate you. Y'all can have my last 3 seconds to glow.
I love it. I'm gonna pull the courtesy clock for a minute. Now, as the person that's kind of hosting and trying to lead the conversation, if we need to stay sort of on this notion and on this point in terms of toxic masculinity, and keep the convo going, if we need to go down the rabbit hole a little bit, then I'm cool with it. But I want to make sure that we, if possible, I want to try to pivot us back towards maybe the broader point of some of the other things that we should be talking about as it relates to guiding our young boys and teaching them the way that they should go and helping us prepare ourselves. So if we need to stay on this point, cool. But I'll just be mindful that I do want to pivot us if we can. On that point, I just brought in my man Vaughn Bryant in. So glad that you joined the stream. I want you to really speak on anything that you feel led to, because we've covered a lot. And then I'm going to give us another round robin, an opportunity for other people to respond as they see fit. How you doing, Vaughn?
Excellent. Can you hear me?
Yes. Loud and clear, sir.
Well, man, I'm excited to be on your platform. I see great things happening for you. And I really appreciate this topic, and the toxic masculinity, that whole little segment you guys did. I mean, I guess we could talk about that further, but I'm not going to address that. But I learned a great deal from that. So thank you, my brothers, for having that dialogue. But back to how we should raise our sons. And I am a person who has been brought up in the church. I'm Christian. I don't force my belief on anyone. I can only express to you what I have been taught. Now, I grew up without a father, so I didn't have a great example at all. When my son was born, I was just like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? And so, but I was taught, and I just believe if you train up a child in the way that it should go, even when he gets old, he may depart from it, but he will return to those type of teachings, And then there's another saying that says, fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. Now, that's just a principle that I was taught coming up. And a lot of these principles I have used in my fathering. I haven't always made I have, I've made some mistakes, put it that way, It's been a learning process. But, my son is 16 years old. And at this point, I can say that I'm very proud of him. And I'm very proud of myself as to what I have put or inputted into him. I taught him how to be a gentleman. I taught him how to education, how important his education is. He is a kind young man. At the same time, he's intelligent, and I'm very proud of him. A lot of it I may not be able to even contribute to myself because, he's just awesome. He's not perfect, but at the same time, I still, at the age of 16, I still have questions. I'm still worried, and I want to make sure I'm saying and doing the right thing. And somebody mentioned earlier the brother Richard. I believe Richard was. You know what? I'm not even going to speak on that right now, but I appreciate your platform, and I'm here for the discussion.
All right. Well, as we see, we are all speaking on this broad topic about how we raise our boys, and you can see that it's nuanced, and there's a lot of very unique perspectives, and I think we're agreeing on a lot of stuff, but we're also coming at it from our own perspective. I'm going to bring up our courtesy clock because we're going to do another round robin of reaction. You guys like that alliteration there, round robin of reaction. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm used to that word.
Okay. So I want to start with Richard. I believe he's been taking some notes. And what I'll do is, because we have so many now, I'm going to pull it down closer to 2 minutes to be respectful of everybody's time. And let's see if we can fit in our reaction within a 2-minute window. Richard, you have the floor, sir. And first, let me unmute you. What I do is, when you're not speaking, I mute you just to make sure that the thing. So go ahead and unmute, and you can go.
So what I'm going to talk about is two things in the context of raising boys. So as I mentioned before, my son plays baseball. And last year, there was another kid that his idea of play was pushing. And he would continue to push my son. Even after my son had gave him boundaries and said, no, stop, I don't want to play like that. And I talked to him afterwards. I said, son, sometimes you have to push him back and keep pushing him until he stops. Because at that point, it's not toxic masculinity. It is he's being assertive. As the father said about his son, he said he needs just a little kid justice. So, I was teaching my son how to respond appropriately in that instance. Now, we also have the instance where, maybe young girls, 12, 13, are sending inappropriate pictures to male classmates. That is inappropriate. And I would hope that my son would not respond in a way in which to be, promiscuous and take advantage of women or girls in those positions, and teach them about this respect for themselves and respect for women. So, when we think about masculinity and we think about toxic masculinity, we have to think about how do we give our children a menu of choices that they can make, both, they'll know the bad choices to make, but also good choices to make. And how do we help them make the right choices that will ultimately preserve their self-esteem, their character, and help them to be responsible men in their families.
All right, again, come on. You're killing it, Richard, with the clock. You're killing it, sir. You know what? Let me just throw this in. They act like I'm doing that a little bit too much, but let me throw that applause in there real quick. You hit it right on the zero. Thank you, everybody, for respecting the courtesy clock. Anybody with their hands up who would like to kind of jump in on this one next? I see.
Yeah.
Okay, I see Darius.
Oh, okay.
Is that? I saw Darius with the hands up, and then I think it was that Vaughn that wanted to jump right back in right after that.
Yeah, I
Okay,
did.
so can I throw it to Darius and then throw it right back to you?
Oh, no problem. Go right
All right.
ahead.
All right, let's do that. Darius, I'm gonna give you 2 minutes on the courtesy clock. Let's see what you can do with it, sir.
Let's get it. So again, I hear that. Definitely again, I have exception with the toxic masculinity because again, it's all behavioral. And the thing is, toxic masculinity becomes the issue because get this, our young men are confused, and we're asking how to raise our young men. We have to take the confusion out. They're confused how to act, how to move. You know, you had a very good example of how, Mr. Richard, how your young son was in a little league and a young man pushed him down. Now take the other little boy out and put a girl in that situation. Now it's totally different. Take a little girl out of that situation, put the police in that situation. Now it's even more different. And our young, particularly, especially black boys, are confused on how to move in the world because there are constructs that are created to really give them uneven and unbalanced boundaries. And the thing that we'll have to do, the thing that we're going to have to do to help raise our young men in particular is start educating them on the history of our culture, the history of where we came from, so they'll understand, have context of why these things are happening. And then we have to take away some of these harmful labels off of our young men. Because again, to subscribe to toxic masculinity means that, you know, that there's toxic behavior that only men are responsible for. And we have to let our young men know that there are certain things in the community, certain things in our society that are not their fault. They're not a construct of their own behavior, but just the world that they grew up in. So my time is up.
All right, that was awesome perspective, though, in the time that you had. Thank you for respecting the clock and giving a little bit of time and space for our next opinion, which I believe is going to come from Vaughn. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Jump on in. We'll give you 2 minutes on the clock, sir.
Okay, I don't think I need 2 minutes because I'm not a great talker. But
Okay.
anyway, I just believe that us as men who are fathering, we need to lead by example, you know. And what example are we showing our sons is what they're going to learn as to how we are treating our women. And for example, when it comes to my wife, you know, my son, he's 16 now, but he, you know, from a child, he has seen how I have treated his mother. And even when we're having a little discord going on, there's a certain way that I still need to address her with respect. So respect is one thing that needs to be taught to our young boys, which a lot of them that I've noticed have absolutely none, no respect at all. And so I think we need to lead by example, teaching our children's morals, good morals and good values. And I think that the word morals and values, we don't even talk about that hardly anymore. You know, and it's not so much that my son wants to wear his pants sagging, you know, where his drawers and his behind is showing. But at the same time, I want to teach him good morals and good values. How is it that you want to be presenting yourself when you walk out of this door? What is the world going to say about you as to how you present yourself to the world? So I teach him these type of morals and values. Now, at the same time, he is an individual. And they grow into their own personalities. They grow into being their own people. So they can make up their minds. They want to make up their minds to do this or make up their minds to do that. I would agree. I say, okay, but that's okay. But when you're in my home, this is how we're going to do it. This is how we're training you. This is how we're going to do things. Now, when you get grown and you can move out, then you can decide to do it another way. I see it's only 4 seconds, so I guess I better be done.
Thank you. No, I think maybe everybody here mirrors your sentiments. But we have some ladies on the chat. on this subject. JP and Adrian, maybe you all would, one of you have anything to add to it?
I have something that I would like to add. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I changed headphones, so wanted to be
You're
sure we're
very
good.
clear. Yes,
Thank
I
you.
love it.
Good. See, I can finally get my headphones working right. Okay.
Right.
So I want to talk about one of the things that that I heard Vaughn say. So glad to have you up here, sir. We need to think about what we are teaching our sons and daughters to be, right? Are we teaching them to lead? Are we teaching them to follow? And can they be both, right? We have sons who need to be able to lead their households, but we're teaching them mostly to follow their mothers and the women in their presence. What about the men in their lives? Those men need to teach them how to lead and to follow. It's a joint thing that we're not doing. Our daughters are learning how to be leaders far more than they are leaders of business mindsets, not a family, right? Not how to take care of your home and your responsibilities inside of there. You lead your children, you lead them with love and compassion and a little bit of a softer space. When you lead out in the world, you lead with a different set of values. You are more masculine. You have to be more dominant. As a woman in the culinary industry, especially starting late in the game and having to push so fast, I had to prove to men that not only could I lift the same 50-pound bag of flour as them, but when I said that it's time for us to get to work on this line, I had to be the first one there, prepped, ready to go, and be able to move faster than them at all times. That's how our men have to move when they are out in the world, right? You gentlemen know this already. So what we need to do is start to define roles more clearly. To be a partner to a man like that, you have to move like this as a woman. You can't match his energy and be just as alpha as he is. There's always going to be contention in that home. One of you has to know when to back down. One of you has to understand that your place is to lead here, his place is to lead out in the world. He governs all of these things and you back up and support him. Why is that such a bad thing to say? That's my question.
Anybody want to answer that, or is anybody think about it in the terms, in the way that, framed it in the way that JP just framed it? If so, then please jump in. Maybe we can go to Richard. But if you see it slightly differently, then don't be afraid to address the nuance as well. Richard, you have a response on that?
You know I do. I want to go. I want to go back. I'm gonna give me 2 minutes. I'm gonna put me on the clock. All right, ready to go.
Yes, sir.
All right, I want to go back to Darius and his comment. About young men being confused, and I don't think that young men, when properly instructed, are confused. Whether it's the situation I gave with the son and a member of his baseball team, or if you put a girl in that situation, that's a different dynamic there. There's a power dynamic that is different in that situation with a girl than it is with a boy of the same age and size. With a police officer, again, a different power dynamic. So therefore, different behaviors are required. And we have to, as men, be able to teach our young boys who will be men how to think in nuance. We cannot have one way for all situations to make it easy. We must be able to have nuanced conversations. Secondly, I think that when we think about raising boys to be men, to have relationships with women, I think we have to begin, at least I'm beginning with my sons, and my wife and I are beginning with our sons, is to have them think about how they will interact with women or girls, how they introduce themselves, how they may, we're going to limit social media, because I told my wife, I said, my son is not going to send some little girl a text message asking her out on a date. He is going to walk over to this girl and ask her like a man. He is not going to send a text message or an email. It is unacceptable. Now, I will say that, someone put in the comment that, hey, the little girl can have a crush on him, but I'm going to teach my son how to respond appropriately if she does have a crush.
Again.
And that's my time.
That's it. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. All right. We are really in a round robin. Now here, let me say this. We've been, in terms of the total times of the stream, we're coming up on 2 hours. I
Oh
don't
wow.
want to, I don't want to cut, and I'm gonna let you whoever wants to come in jump in. I don't want to cut this off, and but I always want everybody to be aware that I'm time conscious of everybody, and I want to be respectful across the board. And so, that being said, while I'm not going to rush us, um, at the tail end here, we have covered this subject in some pretty good detail, and I think we all have done a lot of sharing. And it's always good sometimes to take information in bites if you can, and consider what's said, maybe watch some things over so that we can maybe come back to this, because this is definitely a topic that's worthy of multiple, stabs at it, multiple sessions on it. And so just keep that, all of that in mind. I believe that was Darius who spoke up and maybe was ready to kind of speak next on it. I will put you on the clock, but then understand that as we kind of move forward, this may be our last. We may not go too much deeper down this rabbit hole tonight as we go forward. And so I'm looking for a way for us to now begin to sum up our thoughts as we begin to close on this evening with each other. So all of that said, I should have put myself on the clock, right? Darius, jump right in.
Yeah, Frank. Because I have a difference of opinion. I don't necessarily agree that young boys understand the world that they're in. And the reason why I say that is because they have no control over the world that they're in. They have no control over the nuances that change daily. They have no control over the history of their skin color if they're African American. Like they have no control over certain aspects. So to say that they would have an understanding to even apply these nuances is that's that's not fair. And that's what young men, and I mentor them, I teach them. I've done camps with a lot of African American young boys, and they are confused. They don't understand the construct of how women approach them or young ladies approach them. They don't understand sexuality in context of 2021, how open it is, and where's the limit here and where's the limit there when you have young women who are kind of masculine in their way of approaching sex at a young age. Then you have media. Social media is very huge, and there's an influx of different ideas, and most of which are against men. And most of those are against Black men. So a narrative is constantly fed to them day by day. And the world is so nuanced and so against African American men, and there's no control of their own. They don't control these things, these obstacles. So I disagree with that, but I do agree that we control the teaching of that. We have to teach our young men and educate them on that world as it continues to evolve, and equip them the best that we can. And with my 8 seconds and 7 seconds, that's gonna be it.
You know what? I want to throw it back to Richard. I believe there's some clarification there that he may want to jump in on. And I'm going to give us 90 seconds on this, Rich. Go ahead.
Okay. I do think that we have to teach our young men about this, and it is called character education. And my son goes to a public school here where their motto is be respectful, be responsible, be a problem solver, be respectful. I use kind words and actions. Be responsible. I do the work that leads to learning. Be a problem solver. I focus on solutions. So even at an early age, these are concepts that we can begin to lay the foundation for with our young people who are 4, 5, 6, and 7, to where we can use that foundation as they get older and are confronted with more complex situations. We have laid the foundation. So I do think that we have to teach our kids how to handle this nuance, because they don't come out as little adults. They come out as children who need guidance, direction, and correction and boundaries.
All right. Thank you for that. I believe that's a nice clarifying point. Does anybody want to jump in on this?
I'd like to jump in, just to say
Mm-hmm.
this one more again. uh, when we talk about our children, when we talk about this entire thing, we have to get back to what I preach all the time. Our children have no agency. There's no one in the world who is out there advocating for, looking for any type of justice for them until it's too late. There are people out there like the lead attorney, who shout out to him, who come along in the end as mediators, who are guardians ad litem and those type of things. But then it's too late, and these people are only there from the outside. We need to be our children's advocacy. We need our advocates, excuse me. We need to be their source of agency, the strength through which they speak. In order for that to happen, they have to trust us. That means as mothers, we cannot be talking down and negatively about black men and other men in front of our sons, because they ingest that as negativity about themselves. That's the only representation that they have of themselves, is the black man that they see next to them every day. Because the ones that are on TV, the ones that are out here in the media, they are not exactly like our boys. It's the ones next to them that you bring over every day. Right? And if you're busy talking about those men behind their backs and saying disrespectful things in front of your children, that's how your children are going to see you. Yesterday they were talking about the red pill, and this is what we're talking about. A red pill moment for a lot of our sons is finding out that our mothers see us as being worth nothing, because they see all black men that way. When our sons go through that and tend to see their mothers as just women, that's when we have these problems with respect.
Beautiful way to wrap that right on time with a courtesy clock. You know, so I believe that this is really an appropriate time for us um, to consider what, final things we think we want to add to this overall subject for the evening. And I want to sort of give it in whatever order that you all see fit. But I do believe that this is probably a good time for us to do it. I noticed that Brother Vaughn hadn't said anything. I don't know if you want to sort of jump in now and let us hear your voice. If any final thoughts you may have, sir.
Okay, well, I just would like to stick by the concept of, in regards to raising our sons, that we need to lead by example. And you'll be surprised as to what children learn from a child standpoint, not when they're 16, but it has to be from when they're a child. You have to start when they're a child. A lot of us try to instill these values in our kids, and at 15, and at that point it's too late, just about, because they want to wear the sagging pants, they want to be hip hop and do whatever. And I'm not judging anyone, but I'm just saying we're too late oftentimes as parents. And so we need to lead by example, and that example starts from when they come out of the womb. A lot of us fathers are absent. Like I said, I didn't grow up with a father. I didn't have a good example. I didn't have an example of how to be a father. The only example I had was the men at the church, and I wasn't that close to them. So it was like an example from afar, you know.
Mhm.
But God stepped in, and he gave me wisdom, you know. And when I stayed in the Word, and I'm not this great religious spiritual person, but when I learned these teachings, I instill it into my family, and we're all a part of it. We're all a part of it. And so he has good morals, you know, and it's so far, you know, it's what we taught him. And, and I pray for my son all the time. And I'm gonna leave on that note, you know,
Mhm.
prayer is a definite thing that should be involved in raising those kids.
Mhm.
But if you don't have that higher power or that source or that tap in, to pray to, then I don't know. But anyway, that's all I had to say. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate everybody on the panel.
And I definitely appreciate your voice and perspective as well. Great way to sum it up, sir. I appreciate you. Please hang on while we kind of go down, finish up our round robin here. Adrian has been taking it in. Seems like she's been processing a lot of these things. And so it's always good sometimes, even when you're on the panel, to know, hey, you know what? I really want to, really dive in and really take in what others have to say on it, especially when you're coming from such a closer perspective, like, say Richard is having two sons, or JP having raised sons. So Adrian, what kind of conclusions have you taken from this, and do you have anything that you want to add on the subject?
I mean, I don't.
And notice, I haven't put you on the clock, so I'm giving you all the time you want this time. Take your
I'm gonna try to
time.
keep it.
No, I'm not going
I'm
to.
saying I'm kind of choking back tears
Oh, okay, go ahead. Have at it.
because this discourse makes me feel such hope, and that's a big thing for me right now because I have been really intentionally staying out of these streets because I don't like what I see. And so it's just great to hear, this discourse and to be able to feel hope. And so I'm really grateful for that. And I'm about to turn into a blubbering idiot right here.
Amen. No, I know that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Richard Vaughn. I mean, it's a beautiful thing. My matriarch is a beautiful thing. Thank you.
Yes. I do want to throw it to JP because I think I would like to hear Richard's words. He's been really good, I think, in summing things up and looking at it from a really broad perspective and bringing it in. So, if possible, JP, do you want to have your remarks next?
Yes, that's more than fine with me. I believe that you gentlemen deserve the floor. You've invited us to your space, and I'm gonna respect that at all times. Like I said, for starters, and I don't know if I got a clock or not, but I'll say this:
You don't have a clock. You take your time.
I won't. I'll do my best to be concise. I grew up with my daddy in the home. My father was there for 21 years, and we were in a unique set of circumstances, y'all. My mother already had my older sister and was pregnant with me when they met. My father married my mother a year after I was born and stayed with my mother, like I said, for 21 years until her passing. Each of us girls, there's three, I have a younger sister who came later, had a very contentious relationship with my father through the years. Of course, we spit out all of the venom and vitriol that we could, not even being fully aware that this man did not have a blood connection to us. What you all do is absolutely amazing. Blood tie or not, the fact that you show up every day and you are there is what matters. We live in a world today where black children are born into single parent households. I think it's at like a 72% variable. That's insane. And if we know that, then we know that many of these families don't have parents who can lead by example. Look at the examples I gave this morning, the TikTok twins, the woman on Instagram calling her child a such and such and a so-and-so, the young lady who ended up being shot. These are all things that we know are the direct result of not having two parents in the household, and not saying that we need a man as much as we need a woman. We need a mother as much as we need a father, vice versa. We provide different things inside of the home. My daddy was able to tell me to sit down and shut up. My mama realized I had a big mouth and put me on stage. They saw the thing in me and they acted according to what was going to protect me in their eyes. And that's different because they saw me in their eyes differently. We need to understand that. It's okay for y'all to be gruff and hard and spit and spread your legs. It's not okay for our daughters to do it. It's okay for you to unpack your black and talk about hoo-ha on my porch. It's not okay for your daughter to do it. And we should say that. Your daughter and I should sit in the back room and talk about all those things where y'all can't hear. It's okay to say that, and we have to start. And Frank, you and Richard and everybody who's willing to do that on this space, I appreciate you for it. So that's it. I just thank you all very much for giving me the space to say it and for y'all taking the time to put it out there every day. I think you're muted, Frank.
Yeah.
There
No,
you go.
just
There
telling
you
you,
go.
thank you. Yeah, thank you for lending your voice and your point of view on this as well. I do believe when people listen back to this, all the way across the board, having you will definitely, they're definitely going to pull something from your voice on this as well as the people who are close. The guys who are in terms of the men, being sort of the first on the line in this fight to raise our boys properly. I want to throw it to Richard. You're not on the clock, sir. You can
You know, I'll be brief. I'll be brief because I understand it's late. A couple of things come to mind for me. One is a book, and it's called Between the World and Me, and it's talk about. I'm gonna massacre this man's name. It's Ta-Nehisi Coates, and he talks about the emotions that he was having as he was bringing his son into the world, and how he wanted to protect his son from the world. And when I think about that, I think about Darius's comments about how it almost. And when I heard his comments, I heard a sense of perhaps helplessness around the onslaught of the world coming in and intruding on the lives of these young boys and men. And I think that's something that we have to teach our men, is that you can be in the world and not be of the world. That men, not boys, know their direction, know their purpose, are able to express it assertively, not aggressively, assertively, in a fashion that is accepted by the world. And when we do that, we have a very clear response to the environment that we move in. And we teach our boys who will be men how to use their influence in the world for positive things. And as I kind of wrap it up, is that, as we do that for our boys as parents, whether I parent every child around me, so I don't necessarily have to be their dad, I parent them as well. And we have to be, someone mentioned agents, and be agency and have agency for our children. I think that's absolutely correct, is that we have to step in for them when they cannot step up for themselves as young people, and teach them how to do it in a respectful way, in a powerful way, and in an assertive way that puts up appropriate boundaries that protects them and themselves from harm. And lastly, be an example. As you go out and teach these things, be cognizant that you have to be an example. Now, I will say that about this is that no one is perfect. We make mistakes as fathers. That's a part of the game. No one gave us an instruction booklet when we had children. We learn this as we go. We make mistakes. But the beautiful thing about making mistakes is that we can teach our men that it's okay to make mistakes, that it's okay to apologize, that it's okay to learn and fall and fail forward. And that's an important lesson. Sometimes young men think, hey, I grow up, I go to college, I become a vice president, I become a millionaire. That's not it. There's a lot of failure. There's a lot of success in there. And Frank, you know this as well as I do. You have to treat failure and success the same. If you think about what we learned when we were online, Kipling, right?
Mm-hmm.
Remember to treat those two imposters the same. These are things that we must teach our young boys as they grow up. So I'll end it there and just say, be the example, be agents, teach clarity of boundaries, teach them how to be compassionate, assertive, loving men in the world, so that they can, deal with this world and the hurt that it deals out, and they dish out, and they can deal with it in a productive way and not have it harden them in a way that really is a detriment to them and ultimately to our African-American women that they may marry.
This has been such an outstanding evening on such an important topic. I want to thank every single one of y'all, every last one of y'all who came on and not only, you know, commented in the chat, but participated in the panel. It's an inspiring night across the board. And I, you know, definitely, of course, want to thank my frat brother for coming in and being such a source of, that's right, just a source of what I'm going to say, like appropriate, well thought out perspective as well to help sum us up and help move us forward. So I'm going to put this one on, like, I want to do this one for everybody the whole night.
You're welcome.
Can y'all hear that?
Yes, yes.
All right. And there's nothing I can actually say to you know, put any type of cherry on top of this one. We got the full course meal tonight. So with that, what I'll do is I want to take us to, you know, I'm going to invite you all, if anybody wants to continue to stay on. You know how I end it. I like to roll my outro and let everybody continue typing in the chat, and bid everyone a good evening. Thank you to Adrian Nash, to JP, the aspiring matriarch, to Richard Smith, who is currently here. Shout out to the lead attorney. I don't know if you're still listening, but you popped in. You know, for the conversation, I wasn't able to shout you out right when you popped in, but nothing but the utmost love and respect towards you, brother. Let's keep moving forward, and I hope to see you all on the next one. All right. All right. Nice. All right. I'll see y'all in the next one.